Today we're diving into a question that sounds like it's straight out of a blockbuster movie. Are all the world's volcanoes secretly connected in some massive underground network? Could an eruption in Iceland trigger one in Indonesia? Let's get into it. First off, let's talk about what makes a volcano tick. Deep beneath our feet, the Earth's core is incredibly hot. This heat melts rock, creating a thick, flowing substance called magma. Because this magma is lighter than the solid rock around it, it rises. Sometimes it pools in underground chambers, and when the pressure builds up too much, boom, we get a volcanic eruption. So, where do we find most of these volcanoes? They're not just randomly scattered around the globe. Most of them line up along the edges of what are called tectonic plates. Think of the Earth's crust as a cracked eggshell. These massive broken pieces, the tectonic plates, are constantly moving, grinding against each other, pulling apart, or crashing into one another. This brings us to the famous Ring of Fire. It's a massive horseshoe-shaped path around the Pacific Ocean where a ton of these plate interactions happen. About 75% of the world's volcanoes and 90% of its earthquakes occur along this ring. You've got plates sliding under one another in a process called subduction, which melts rock and creates a whole lot of magma. So, are the volcanoes in the Ring of Fire connected? In a way, yes. They are connected by the same overarching geological process, the movement of these massive tectonic plates. It's like a bunch of restaurants all being part of the same giant food court. They're all there for the same reason, but each kitchen operates independently. But here's the key question. If one volcano erupts, does it send a pressure wave through some magma superhighway and set off its neighbor? The simple answer is no. There's no giant global pool of magma connecting every volcano. Each volcano generally has its own independent plumbing system, with its own magma chamber. Think of it like houses on a street. They are all connected to the same city water main, which is like the tectonic plate boundary. But turning on the faucet in your house doesn't automatically turn on the faucet in your neighbor's house. Each has its own separate pipes and controls. However, science is never that simple, right? There are some fascinating exceptions where volcanoes can influence each other, but it's usually on a much more local scale. Imagine two volcanoes that are relatively close, say, within about 10 kilometers or 6 miles of each other. If they happen to share a common deep source of magma, an eruption at one could potentially change the pressure in the shared system, which might affect the other. This is like two straws in the same milkshake. Sipping from one can affect the level of the drink available for the other. Geologists have seen this happen in places like Alaska and Iceland, where a cluster of volcanoes seems to show linked activity. There's another way a massive eruption can have a global impact, and that's through the atmosphere. When a huge volcano like Mount Pinatubo in 1991 or Krakatoa in 1883 erupts, it doesn't just spew lava. It blasts enormous amounts of ash and gas, particularly sulfur dioxide, high into the stratosphere. These tiny particles act like a giant sunshade, reflecting sunlight back into space and causing a temporary global cooling effect. For a year or two after a major eruption, the average global temperature can drop by a noticeable amount. So in this sense, a volcano in one hemisphere can absolutely affect the climate for the entire planet. It's not a chain reaction of eruptions, but it is a global consequence. Let's also talk about hotspots. These are a different kind of volcanic beast. Think of Hawaii or Yellowstone. These volcanoes aren't at the edge of a plate, they're smack in the middle of one. The theory is that there are these incredibly hot plumes of material rising from deep within the Earth's mantle, like a blowtorch aimed at the underside of a tectonic plate. As the plate slowly drifts over this stationary hotspot, the plume punches through, creating a chain of volcanoes. The Hawaiian Islands are a perfect example. The Big Island is currently over the hotspot and is volcanically active, while the other islands to the northwest are older and have moved off it. This is another form of connection, a single source creating a whole family of volcanoes over millions of years. But even here, an eruption on the Big Island doesn't reactivate the ancient volcanoes on Kauai. So let's put it all together. Is there a single planet-wide network of connected volcanoes ready to go off in a domino effect? No. The idea of a global magma ocean that links everything is a myth. Volcanoes are mostly independent systems, However, they are often grouped together by the massive geological forces of plate tectonics, like the Ring of Fire. On a very local level, neighboring volcanoes can sometimes influence each other if they share a deep plumbing system. And on a global level, a single massive eruption can dramatically affect our climate and weather patterns everywhere. The reality is fascinating enough without needing a sci-fi plot. The Earth is a dynamic living planet, and volcanoes are one of the most powerful expressions of its inner energy. Scientists are constantly monitoring them, using everything from satellites to seismometers to better understand their behavior and keep us safe. The connections they find aren't about a global catastrophe waiting to happen, but about understanding the intricate and powerful systems that have shaped our world for billions of years. It is a reminder that we live on the thin crust of an incredibly powerful and active planet. I hope that clears things up. It's a super cool topic that shows how interconnected our planet is, even if it's not in the way we might imagine. What other big Earth science questions do you have? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.